Hey, is that folk music that you play there? What is that? How do you call that folk music?
I think it was Studs Terkel who asked Big Bill Brunzi, did he consider his blues music to be folk music? And Big Bill says, well, never heard no horse.
Bang! Hot dog!
Don't hesitate. It could be your ticket to a new tomorrow.
There was once a great warrior whose name was Guskapi. And Guskapi was such a great warrior, whenever he would come into a new town, all the men would point at him and talk about how strong he was and how many men he had killed in battle. And whenever Guskapi would come into a new town, all the women would bat their eyes and flirt with him. And whenever Guskapi would come into a new town, he would go right into the center, stand on something high, clap his hands and say, "Attention everyone, for I am the great Guskapi. And there is no one who I cannot defeat. There is no one I cannot make do exactly what I want them to do." Now one day when Guskapi made this claim that there was no one he could not defeat, there was no one he could not make do exactly what he wanted them to do, a little old woman, only about that tall, wrinkles on every part of her body, only 2 teeth left in her head, one here and one here, wandered up to Guskapi and said, "Guskapi, you are great, it is true, but I can show you one who you cannot defeat. I can take you to one who you cannot make do exactly what you want them to do." Guskapi said, "Old woman, you must be crazy or senile, but I will let you take me to this one you say I cannot defeat." And so the old woman went like this. And Guskapi followed her to a giant wigwam, and she threw open the flap, and Guskapi stepped in. And first he couldn't see because it was dark, but as his eyes got used to the light, Guskapi could see that inside that room, there were women, dozens of them, and they all seemed to be running around bringing blankets and food for someone. They were all running around so busy that not one of them took any time to flirt with Guskapi as they usually did. Guskapi grew jealous and said, "Women, out of my way, and let me see this one that you were so concerned with that you have no time for me." All the women looked at each other, smiled, stepped out of the way so that Guskapi could see that there in the middle of that room sat a baby with the chubby little cheeks and the chubby little head and the one little piece of hair sticking straight up. Guskapi said, "Oh, woman, now I know you are cuckoo. That is a baby. I am a man. I am a full-grown warrior. I can make that baby do whatever I want it to do. Look at this. Baby, baby, come to me." Well, the baby looked at Guskapi. Gah! But it didn't come. Guskapi said, "There must be something wrong with that baby's ears. I said, baby, baby, come to me." Well, the baby looked at Guskapi again. Ah! But it still didn't come. Guskapi said, "I said, baby, baby, come to me." The baby looked at Guskapi again. Ah! 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 Guskapi clapped his hands over his ears and said, "Oh my God, I have heard horrible sounds in my life. I've heard the cries of men being killed in battle. I've heard the cries of mothers being told that their sons are not coming from the war, but never in my whole entire life have I heard anything as loud and as piercing and as horrible as the cries of that baby, 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 shh." But the baby get wah, wah, wah. Guskapi said, "No, no, I'm not going to let that baby just a baby. I'm not going to be defeated by that baby. I will make that baby be quiet. I will make it do what I want it to do. I just have to figure out what baby's like. Baby's like. Ah," Guskapi said, "baby's like music." But Guskapi looked around, and he had forgotten his drum. But the only thing he did have was a little bag that was full of some rocks and stones. And so when he shook it together, it kind of sounded like a rattle, like this. And sure enough, the baby loved this because it stopped crying and went, ah. There, Goosecopy said, I've done it. I've defeated that baby. I've made it do what I wanted it to do. I have made that baby stop. Because you know how babies are. They don't have much of a attention span. So the minute he stopped shaking that bag, the baby started to cry again. Well, Goosecopy picked up the bag and started shaking it again. But by now, the baby was bored with that, so he just kept crying. Goosecopy said, no, I'm not going to let that baby defeat me. I just have to figure out what else it likes. Babies like music. Babies like music. And babies like dancing. So this time, he picked up that bag with the rattle again, and as he shook it, he started to dance, going, woohoo! Woohoo! And the baby loved this because it stopped crying. Woohoo! Yeah, Goosecopy said, I have done it. I have defeated the baby. I have made that baby stop. There's a curse again, the attention span thing. The minute he had stopped shaking and dancing, the baby started to cry again. So Goosecopy had no choice. He had to keep going. He picked up that bag and he continued to dance. He danced until he felt like his legs were going to fall off. He danced until he felt like his arms were going to fall off. He danced until he felt like his head was going to fall off. Then finally, when Goosecopy was so sore and tired he couldn't dance another step, he just stopped dancing. Stop shaking and let that baby cry. And as Goosecopy left that wigwam, defeated for the first time in his whole entire life, that old woman came up to him and said, "Don't worry, Goosecopy. No one can defeat the baby. No matter whose house it's in, the baby is always the master." And as Goosecopy left that wigwam, defeated for the first time in his whole entire life, don't you know, that baby did stop crying for 1 minute. 1 minute just long enough to raise its chubby little hands, wave its chubby little fingers and say, "Goo, goo, goo, goo." And to this day, you kind of notice that all babies kind of say goo goo, because all babies remember the day that they, the tiny little baby, defeated the great warrior, Goosecopy. The end.
All right.
Thank you.
The show is Horses Sing None of It. My name is Ralph Littman. Our guest today is Julie Pasqual. Welcome to Horses Sing None of It.
Thank you for having me, Ralph.
And you are not just a storyteller, you are a dancer, ballet and modern, and a clown with the Big Apple Circus Hospital unit.
Called the Big Apple Circus, let's see, they changed the name, Big Apple Circus Clown Care Hospital Program, where we perform in hospitals for children. I'm mostly at Harlem Hospital, performing for the kids up there that are sick or in the hospital.
It's a great service.
It is. It's an amazing job, and it's one of those things where I get a lot more from it than I ever give, and we also go to the Hole in the Wall Gang Camp, which is one of Paul Newman's camps that he funds with all his products. That's in Connecticut. We perform for the sick kids up there, and then I got a chance to go to one of our sister organizations in Paris and perform with their without language, which was a lot of fun over there for the kids over there. Yeah.
And you're also an actress?
Well, yeah, I don't do so much acting anymore, the sort of the dance and the clowning and the storytelling, but yeah, I've done everything from Shakespeare to, plays that were written by inner city kids. For this one program, they wrote the plays, and I was always sort of playing the victim or the tough girl or something like that. Yeah.
Renaissance woman.
Yeah, somebody called me that once. I was like, oh, I like that, so I'm going to take
That has a good ring to it.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't sound pretentious. Hi, I'm a Renaissance woman. I expect to have a high collar on or something. Yeah, or sometimes I say I'm a creativity junkie. Because if something looks creative, I'm like, oh, let me try that. Let me try at least one. So I tend to, that accounts for a lot of my, like, that's how I learned how to walk stilts. Because I was like, watching somebody, I was like, you know, that can't be that hard. And so next thing I know, my husband's building me a pair of stilts. And
That looks like fun.
that looks like it is awfully fun. It's nice to go from being like the shortest person in the room to being the tallest person in the room. It's just like that. So I've dabbled in puppetry and you know, all sorts of crafts just because I see something. It's like, oh, that's creative. It looks like fun. Let me try. Yeah.
Good. That story, Gustavi,
Yeah.
is that an original story of yours?
No, that is, it's a Native American folktale from the Penobscot Indians up in Maine.
No kidding.
And that type of story that sort of explains something
Uh-huh.
in folktale genre is called a pourquoi story, which in French means why. And so stories like that explain things are pourquoi stories. That's so like there's another story I was telling you earlier before the camera was on was why frog doesn't have a tail. That's a pourquoi story. There's every culture has pourquoi stories, and it's folktales are really interesting. That's mostly what I tell, because in every culture, no matter how far away countries or cultures are, they all have the same types of stories. Like there'll be a pourquoi tale in France, but there's also one in Indonesia. And what's really interesting is sometimes these stories are so very similar, even though these stories are so old. There's no way that somebody hopped on a plane or saw me on a TV show and and watched it and wrote it down. So there's pourquoi tales, trickster tales, wisdom tales. They're always different, what we call variants of stories, and folk tales are really interesting.
So what kind of tale are you going to tell us next?
I think I'm going to tell a trickster tale, actually.
All right, I love them.
Yeah, and this one is, I think, one of the first stories I ever learned, I think. And it is, it's a really interesting story because it's Angolan folktale. But for anybody that knows African American folktales, it's going to sound awfully similar. Because this is one of those stories that sort of traveled, they believe, and the scholars, believe they sort of traveled with the slave trade from Africa to the United States. So it is called The Clutter Turtle. And there was once a mean, I am talking mean, and greedy farmer whose name was Old Hickory. And mean and greedy though he was able to grow the tallest, the sweetest, the most delicious corn anyone had ever tasted. People would come from miles around just to stand there and stare at his corn. Hey, look at that. That's beautiful. That's some beautiful corn. Isn't that beautiful corn? And every once in a while, someone would work up the nerve to walk up to Old Hickory, tap him on the shoulder, and say, excuse me, Old Hick, I'm wondering if you would let me take a ear or two of your corn home for my friends and family to taste. But Old Hickory, mean and greedy that he was, he'd always suck his teeth and say, I reckon if you want some of my corn, you are going to have to pay me for it. Well, one hot, sunny summer's day, when Old Hickory's corn was at its tallest, its sweetest, its most delicious, Old Hickory himself went down to the cornfield. And when he saw those row upon row upon row of tall, sweet, delicious corn, he just laughed like this. Oh, I know what I'm going to do, because this is the tallest, sweetest, most delicious corn I ever did grow. First thing tomorrow morning, I'm going to come down here, I'm going to pick it. I'm going to take it to market, and I'm going to sell it, and it's going to make me rich. Rich, 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 rich. And that's just what he did. The next morning, before the sun was even up in the sky, Old Hickory, he hopped out of bed, he changed out his pajamas, he made up his bed. And of course, he took some time to brush his teeth because he's some funky smelling breath. And he picked up a great big bag to pull that corn in, and he began to walk down to the cornfield. And as he walked, all he could do was think about how rich that corn was going to make him. He said, this is going to make me rich. Rich, 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 rich. But when Old Hickory got down to the cornfield, he didn't see no row upon row upon row of tall, sweet, delicious corn. What he saw was row upon row upon row of eating corn. Someone or something had eaten every last piece of corn in his cornfield. And old Hickory, he was hopping mad. He looked around the room to see if he could see who had eaten it. Ralph, was it you?
It was me.
I didn't think so. He didn't see anybody. Except a great, big, fat, gray turtle just sitting there sleeping in the sun. Oh, Hickory, he tipped over to that turtle. And he could see there was a piece of corn hanging out the side of the turtle's mouth like this. He picked up that turtle and it burped in its sleep. Oh, and he could smell there was corn in that turtle's funky breath. He shook it till woke up. He said, "Look at here, Mr. Turtle. I see the corn in your mouth. I smell it on your breath. I know you ate on my corn. What you got to say for yourself, Mr. Turtle?" And that turtle, in the slow way the turtles have a saying, said, "Yes, yes, I ate on your corn and, well, it was delicious too. But you're right, it was the wrong thing to do. You should punish me. Punish me in any way you want to, but just don't throw me in the river." Lurker said, "Yeah, you're right. I got to punish you, but how? What can I do that really you won't like? Won't make you shake in your little turtle shell? What can I, Oh, I got it. I know what I'm going to do to you, Mr. Turtle. I'm going to make some turtle stew out of you. Not that mock turtle kind, the real kind. Now, what you got to say for yourself, Mr. Turtle?" And that turtle, in the slow way the turtles have a saying, said, "Yes, yes, I deserve to be punished. Punish me in any way you want to. Make turtle stew out of me, but just don't throw me in the river." Oh, Hickory said, "Oh, wait a minute now. It doesn't seem like you're too scared of being made to stew, so I got to think of something else to punish you. What? Ah, I got it. I know what I'm going to do to you, Mr. Turtle. I'm going to dig a hole so deep that when I put you in it, you ain't never, ever, ever going to be able to climb on out. Now, what you got to say to yourself, Mr. Turtle?" And that turtle, in the slow way the turtles have a saying, said, "Yes, yes, I deserve to be punished. Punish me in any way you want to. Make turtle stew out of me. Put me in a hole so deep I ain't never, ever, ever going to be able to climb on out. But just don't throw me in the river." Oh, I said, "Now, wait a minute now. Don't seem like that turtle's too afraid of that either. So I got to think of something else to punish him. What can I, I got it. I know what I'm going to do to you, Mr. Turtle. I'm going to take you to a field where there's no shade, tie you to a pole and let the sun beat down on you all day. Now, what you got to say for yourself, Mr. Turtle?" And that turtle, in the slow way the turtles have a saying, said, "Yes, yes, I deserve to be punished. Punish me in any way you want to. Make turtle stew out of me. Put me in a hole so deep I ain't never, ever, ever going to be able to climb on out. Tie me to a pole and let the sun beat down on me all day. But just don't throw me in the river." Oh, he said, "Now, wait a minute now. This turtle's not afraid of stew. He's not afraid of holes. He's not afraid of poles. What can I do to punish him? I maybe not been smart enough to figure this out. What? I got it. I know how I'm going to punish you, Mr. Turtle. I'm going to throw you in the river." Oh, Hickory, he picked up that turtle and he went 1, 2, 3. Well, that turtle must have flipped over about 15,000 times before it landed with a splash in the water. Oh, Hickory, he stood there looking when the turtle disappeared, laughing, going, I know, that was a good way to punish you. Poor Turtle, you probably couldn't swim. That's why you all like, oh, don't throw me in the river, don't throw me in the river. But I got you good. I am so much smarter than you are. Well, Hickory, he was just about to go back to his house. Then all of a sudden, he saw something come rising up out of the water. Now, at first, it was just little bubbles. But then, it was a little gray shell. A little gray, whoops, I got it the wrong way. Here we go. A little gray shell, a little gray head, and 4 little gray feet. It was that turtle swimming just as good as you please. Oh, Hickory said, "Now, wait a minute, Mr. Turtle. That's not a good enough punishment. If you knew how to swim, come on back and let me punish you right." But that turtle, in a slow way the turtles have a saying, just turned his head, winked his eye, and said, Thanks for the way home, old hickory. And that turtle swam, he even did the backstroke, and swam till he was out of sight. And poor old hickory, he never did see or hear from that turtle ever again. The end.
Very nice.
Thank you. So that's sort of a classic trickster tale in folk tales. It's always the little guy gets over on the big guy, you know, using his brain as opposed to brawn. And in African American folk tales, there's of course all the Brer Rabbit stories.
Yeah.
And he gets thrown in by the farmer, and Brer Rabbit says, "Don't throw me in the briar patch. Don't throw me in the briar patch. Don't throw me in the briar patch." And of course, when the farmer does, Brer Rabbit gets away because that's where he was born. So this is the same thing. Don't throw me in the river. Don't throw me in the river, because he was a sea turtle. He's just able to swim away. So that I love that story for that sort of connection to like how it sort of traveled from one continent to another, and it's pretty much the same tale, but just different animals and little different circumstances.
That's great.
Yeah.
We should tell folks how they can find out more about your performing schedule and your other activities.
Sure. Should I? Oh, do I tell them? Am I allowed to say?
We can say your website, we just can't show it.
Okay. Oh, we can say it. We can't show it. Okay. Right to the camera. Hi. My website is juliepasqual.blogspot.com. And that gives a pretty good listing of my storytelling performances. I don't list ones that are in schools because, you know, I don't need people, hey, I'm showing up to see Julie if it's through school, but all my library performance and festival performances are up there. And in terms of the Big Apple Circus, if you're unfortunately ever in Harlem Hospital, you'll see me. I don't look quite like this. I wear a beautiful sort of orange tutu, and I have my tap shoes on, and I ticky and down the hallway. And actually, we're just starting a program with the circus that's called Vaudeville Caravan up at a veterans home in Ossining, New York, because we're finding in other cities, the therapeutic humor approach really working with the elderly as well. So we're going to, not as clowns, but as sort of vaudevillian characters, going to be performing up there. So I'll be up there for one Tuesday a month.
Great.
Starting in February, yeah.
And folks can email you for more information if they're interested in having you perform for some function they're in charge of.
Yeah, I do schools, libraries, museum, festival, even in somebody's wedding once, which was very, very sweet. They asked me to find stories. I sat down and I talked to the bride because she wanted something different, and I told stories from their culture, and I found that she was very close to her grandmother, and I told this story that I found this story that her grandmother had told her. I went and I researched it and told it, and it was really,
wow.
Yeah, it was really very sweet. I wish I'd had a storyteller at my wedding. Well, I did. I was there, but I was too busy. I was still wearing a nice dress.
And let's also tell folks about the New Jersey Storytelling Festival.
Yeah, New Jersey Storytelling Festival. I'm bad because I can't remember what year we're in. I think we're up to maybe our 13th or 14th. It'll be held in probably September, but you can go to the Folk Project website, and it's held at the Grounds for Sculpture, which is just a beautiful, in Hamilton, New Jersey. It's a beautiful facility, but it's this great day full of storytelling. There's usually a workshop in the morning about how to tell stories, and then all throughout the grounds there's all sorts of storytellers telling for adults and for children and for family groups all through the sites, and it's just a really, really wonderful day. And if storytelling's your thing, definitely be there. And the Grounds for Sculpture is just they've been really great to host us this last 3 years. It's a beautiful place.
Great.
And hopefully I'll be there again. I usually am, but so.
Would you like to tell us another tale?
Yes, in fact, I was thinking I'm going to, since I was talking about weddings, this is one of my favorite folk tales. It's from the Jewish tradition, and most of my folk tales come from folk tale anthologies, but this one I heard somebody else tell, and I had to tell because I so related to it. And it begins like this. One day, the prophet went for a walk, and he saw many things. He saw wives walking with their husbands. He saw mothers with their little babies. He saw older couples still holding hands. And he saw a house where he knew there was something going on, because the prophet could hear music, and he could smell food. And on the steps of this house was a man dressed in his finest robes. And this man kept saying over and over, "Come one, come all, for truly all are welcome. Come help my wife and I celebrate the wedding day of our only daughter. Come, for truly all are welcome. And as the prophet stood there, sure enough, every person that came up, this man welcomed in. But before the prophet turned to go, he said to himself, I will see if truly all are welcome. And the prophet went home, and he changed out of his clothes into the clothes of a beggar. He put on clothes that were ripped and torn. He took mud and dirt and rubbed them on his face and his hair, and then picking up an old, gnarled walking stick, he walked every bit like a beggar back to the house, where still the man was, dressed in his robe, standing on the steps, saying over and over, Come, come one, come all, for truly all are welcome. Come help my wife and I celebrate the wedding day of our only daughter. Come, for truly all are welcome. But when the prophet approached the man, dressed as the beggar, the man stopped talking and said, Can I help you? The prophet said, Yes, I smell the food. I would love something to eat. The man said, Well, you can go around the back and I'll have my servants maybe bring you some of the leftovers. The prophet said, Oh no, I hear music. I want to go inside and maybe dance with one of the pretty girls. The man said, Either you go around the back and accept what my servants give you, or I'll have someone make you leave. And so the prophet bowed his head and left. And he went home again, and he changed his clothes yet again, but this time he put on the clothes of a king. Turquoise blue edged in gold. He put on rings on every single finger. He put a turban with a ruby right in front and peacock feathers. And then picking up a golden walking stick that was encrusted with jewels, he walked every bit like a king back to the house, where still the man was, standing on the steps, saying over and over, Come, come one from all, for truly all are welcome. Come help my wife and I celebrate the wedding day of our only daughter. Come, for truly all are welcome. And this time, when he saw the prophet dressed like this, he bowed and let him in and said, Sir, it would be an honor for you to be at our wedding. But once inside, the prophet was given food, but instead of eating them, he put the food all over his clothes, the dinner in his pockets, the wine down his clothes. And after the meal, the father bride said, Sir, I don't understand what you're doing. I invited you into my daughter's wedding, but you put the food all over your clothes. And the prophet said, Well, I was simply giving the food to who you invited in here today. And the man said, No, 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 sir, I invited you. And the prophet said, No, 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 no. Because earlier today I came here as a beggar, and you didn't let me in, but I came dressed like this, and you let me in. So who you invited in wasn't me, it was my clothes. And just like that, the prophet disappeared. But his voice kept saying over and over, Because you said all are welcome, but you did not truly mean it. The end.